The city of Wuppertal, Germany is the 17th largest city in the country and was created after a merger of several key towns in 1929. It has great amenities and attractions, including a zoo and an arboretum. But one of its most famous and rarest attractions is its railway, its suspended railway. The River Wupper is central to the city and runs through a deep valley. Even though the city was not inaugurated as a city until 1929, the area surrounding the river was becoming heavily congested as people moved for the industries such as textiles and metals. This movement caused a big problem when it came to moving around. People needed cheap, reliable transport links, especially as these industries began to expand. The problem was the only real, reliable links available was railways, and many were not keen on having tracks at ground level, especially in these built-up areas. The solution, however, was actually thought of in 1821. Henry Robinson Palmer was a civil engineer and conceived a plan for a suspended railway. A patent was submitted by him for a monorail, but with a twist. Instead of the train being above the suspended track, the train would be suspended underneath it. Carriages would be connected by twin wheels. If you think of upside down bike, you kind of get the gist. And the railway would be suspended in the air with the aid of pillars. These pillars would be placed at a rough 45-degree angle with the track in the middle. To power this train, a tow rope would be lowered to a towed track and a horse would pull the train forward. It wasn't really for passengers, although it did have a few passenger runs, but it was made for coal movement and manufacturing products. A year after the monorail was incepted, Germany's Friedrich Harcourt heard about the design and designed his own in his factory in Germany. He built a demonstration track and it seemed to be going well, but the idea was not initially adopted. However, the problems continued. The public were complaining about the lack of transport, and while horsepower was available, it was still slower and less reliable than other modes. In the 1880s, the decision was made to build a new railway that would address these issues. Eugen Langen had experience with railways before and was a business partner with Nicholas Otto. Nicholas may be known to many of you, especially if you drive cars, as he is accredited for being the inventor of the internal combustion engine. But why Eugen? Eugen wasn't just any engineer, he was the perfect man as he had experience with the railway the town was wanting. A suspended railway. Considering the terrain, a suspended railway made sense. The only real available open space in the town was the river. Bridges were out of the question, it was too impractical and the cost would have been far too much. The way it would work would be similar to the prototypes made in 1821. The railway would straddle the river and held aloft with steel A-frame shaped trusses. The railway would then run underneath with the electric cables covered. But with monorails already being tried and tested at this point in time, it seemed odd that Eugen opted for this unique structure. In many cases, it made a lot of sense. Electric cables, even those on traditional monorails, are open to the elements and are more susceptible to short-circuiting in the wet. Being suspended and covered also meant that the public in general could not intentionally or accidentally interfere with these cables, and it was all around much safer. It was also safer for the rails, as they were outside of most people's reach. It meant that they were less likely to be interfered with. The railway opened in 1901 and it sits about 13 metres high and runs for just over 8 miles. At high speed takes around 30 minutes to traverse. It was opened in sections and was finished in 1903 and had a relatively blemish-free career. Even the Second World War couldn't fully stop this railway. It was damaged, but it reopened in 1946. But 5 years after the war, an incident happened that was so odd, it kinda shaped parts of the line forever. In the era of no social media and little television, travelling circuses were a popular source of entertainment. These circuses would exhibit exotic animals such as lions and elephants and use them in the shows. To move the circuses around, circuses would use trains or wagons to get them from place to place. The Aldorf Circus was no different, and as trainers do today, the animal handlers eventually would hold the animals in the same regard as we do pets, and many would go the extra mile to look after them. Bear in mind, this was the 50s. I don't condone any animal in circuses today, and I am aware some animals were horribly treated. One elephant in the circus was Tuffy. Tuffy was a 4-year female Asian elephant and a bit of a favourite with the animal trainer and director Franz. It was common that Tuffy was used in publicity stunts and to promote the circus. She was a good girl and hardly caused any trouble, so Franz was happy for her to interact with the crowds. He even took the elephant on the odd tram ride or two around the towns he was visiting. On the 21st of July 1950, the circus had hit Wuppertal, and Franz thought what better way to promote the circus than by getting his Tuffy to ride the famous railway. Armed with his elephant, his son and a small crew of photographers, he approached the station and asked the very surprised operator if Tuffy could board. Amazingly, he agreed, and was loaded into a car with several passengers who were eager to travel with Tuffy. Now, Tuffy is used to travelling in crowded conditions, even used to tram rides, but as the suspended railway started to get some speed, it started to sway. This movement caused the elephant to become nervous. She tried to turn around, but the confines made this impossible, and in that moment, nerves turned to sheer panic. The people in the carriages, who just a few moments ago were celebrating, now realised they were trapped with almost a ton of panicking pachyderm, and also started to panic, causing even more chaos. Tuffy did the only thing she could think of doing: remove herself from the situation. After breaking several chairs, she attempted to smash the windows, and made a sizable elephant escape hole in the train side. Without a second thought, she jumped, and landed 10 metres below in the river. Franz was devastated and tried to jump after her, however his son wisely held him back. Once the train had made it to the station, the circus crew ran to the river where Tuffy was last seen. Very wet, annoyed, battered and bruised, but alive, stood Tuffy, rather miffed from the whole mess. Tuffy was returned to the circus and worked right up until her death in 1989. Although the circus and the official that allowed her to ride were fined, her story became legendary, and even today you will find homages to Tuffy all around the railway. The railway continued on and made improvements over time to the steel and the cars. Its construction made it the safest way to travel in the world. Its spotless record, though, was sadly broken in 1999. On the 12th of April at 5:40, car number 4, a GTW 72 series articulated train, left the station. It was busy with the early morning rush and was almost full. 5 minutes into the journey, the train was running about 50 kilometers per hour when a huge bang was heard above it. The leading car leant to the right and fell off the track and hit a steam pipeline bridge that straddled the river. A few seconds later, the leading bogie, which had been sheared off and was left hanging 10 metres above the stricken train, came off the track and fell right through its body. So what caused the safest railway in the world to come crashing down? Workers had been working in the area the night before and spent the night replacing the weight-bearing structures. To help the track keep its shape and to help stabilise it while the work commenced, a steel claw fastener was put on the main guide rail. The work should have only taken a few hours at most, but they were running late. So late, in fact, that they only finished work and left the site mere minutes before the first train of the day, the 5:40. In their haste to get out of the way of the train, they simply forgot about the claw fastener. The fastener acted as the perfect obstacle to shear the front bogie off the train and derail it, with scores of people injured, and 5 people would lose their lives. The blame for the accident lay squarely on the shoulders of the night crew and the 2 inspectors who gave the green light for the railway to run. The foreman told the inquiry and the court that he had ordered for the claw to be removed, but acknowledged he could only spot check certain factors and had to rely on the fitters to do their work on the basis of trust. The inspectors also acknowledged that they had not seen the claw either, as they had no torches. In the end, the fitters and the foreman on the scene were acquitted, but the inspectors and the others responsible for overseeing the work were found guilty of negligent homicide and sentenced to probation. The public and the victims' families were furious, and after an appeal, all the workers were found guilty and sentenced to probation or suspended sentences of differing values. The operator paid millions to the families affected, as well as provide extra money for burial costs and counselling for the incident. It never spoke about the guilty verdicts, but wanted to provide as much support as possible. This emotional support also extended to families of those affected, whether they be injured or just travelling. The train was removed from the river rather quickly, and the section was repaired and back in service mere 8 weeks after the accident. Apart from a brief stop in the Second World War, the railway has enjoyed continuous running almost perfectly. It is easily the most reliable transport in Germany, maybe even Europe. It has a fleet of 31 articulated trains, the GTW Generation 15, produced in 2016. These trains run on the higher voltage of 750 volts and carry 4 AC motors and have enough room for about 131 people. Though I don't think elephants will be on the passenger list anytime soon.